Now today we turn our attention to Johannesburg, where multilateralism just scored an unexpected revival. The G20 summit has delivered an unexpected boost for global cooperation and did so during its first ever meeting on African soil. Now, despite a boycott by the United States and objections from Argentina, host nation South Africa managed to unite nearly all other members behind a joint declaration, easing doubts about the G20's future that had been growing in recent weeks. Many question whether Pretoria could overcome deep divisions within the bloc. But leaders not only reached agreement, they also proposed a global panel on inequality, the first initiative of its kind within the G20, putting the issue firmly at the center of the international agenda. The show of unity, however, infuriated Washington, which takes over the G20 presidency next year. The White House accused South Africa of undermining the group's tradition of consensus and warned that the Johannesburg Declaration strayed from the G20's founding principles. Still, delegates say the summit demonstrated that the G20 can hold together even when its most powerful member stays away, and that collective action on inequality, climate change, and global economic stability remains possible despite widening geopolitical rifts. All right, to help us make sense of the extraordinary G20 summit, the first ever held on African soil, and one marked by both unity and controversy, we're joined by Professor Anthony Killer. He's a director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies and a leading political economist. Professor Killer, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we've seen South Africa secure a declaration despite a U.S. boycott, a first proposal for a global inequality panel, and then unusually sharp reactions from Washington. The South African president has described this as a success. How would you describe the summit in the face of a U.S. boycott?
I agree. I think the South African leaders call it a success, and you can see why they will call it a success. But I think I agree more with your framing. It's a uniting and controversial event. There's something going on there which is anthropological, which some leaders and observers across the world are missing. The world is changing. Africa is not a place you go back to now. Today, because of the demographics of the world, across the world, Africa is present in the boardroom, in the bedroom, on the football pitch. Because of this, you cannot push aside Africa again. What differentiates people is how they relate to Africa. So Trump's reaction is different from the British and the French kind of reaction. It's reshaping itself. What the G20 summit held in Johannesburg, South Africa has shown us that with or without a big country like America, Africa now has a voice, and the rest of the world, because of the new generation, are listening to this kind of voice. That is the key thing I will take away from Johannesburg. That is what is going on. So I like your framing, unity and controversial. That is what has come out, but definitely relevant.
What does it say about the G20's power and its direction and relevance at this moment?
I think yes, it's definitely relevant because you see, Africa. What are the 4 or 5 key things that is Africa's interest on the global stage? One is inclusion and recognition. That's a sort of an identity issue, inclusion and recognition. Number 2 are key themes like environment, in which Africa does not want to be shortchanged while it wants to play its part. The other is debt that impedes development, and the summit is talking about. The other issue that Africa is talking about is how do we relate to raw materials, lithium, gold, crude oil. Africa is now saying, let us not just become exporters of crude, let us become participants in refining, in production chain. And Africa is saying this thing. I think one thing Africa should pay attention is the new revolution of technology, this new digital technology revolution going on. That is the next step, and I think because we're all starting it together, albeit at different levels, it is time for Africa to duly participate in it. If I was in that room, one thing I would mention in seriously, and what African leaders should be talking about, is how to position Africa as the producers and exporters of human capacity. That should be our next challenge in the world.
Tequila, let me put you on hold. You mentioned the African perspective. It was just now our own State House correspondent, Femi Akonde, was there with the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. I will just now take a report that looks broadly, more broadly at the Nigerian perspective to this summit.